Stop sharing your screen.
Sorry. I'm gonna it's got me out of my flow. I should have just kept sharing my screen. One second. What it do, what it do. This is the Brothers on Books podcast, where we find great books that will give you real value and actionable steps and have fun in the process. Please reach out to us at brothersonbooks@gmail.com for any book recommendations, or if you'd like to be a guest host for a particular book you have in mind. A great review or rating on whichever platform you're listening to this would be greatly appreciated. If you can think of any friend, family member, or coworker that might like this episode, please pass it along. For the original episodes, the OGs, please visit brothersonbooks.com. I am Jack Allweil, and with me, as always, is my brother, Alex Allweil. Al, how are you doing today?
Doing great, Jack. How you doing?
Doing pretty good. And speaking of promotions, I'm sipping on some matcha right now, Al. And for the listeners at home, you can also be healthy and drink matcha, and click the link below for 20% off with Encha Matcha.
The best matcha when you're cuddled up next to the fireplace reading your favorite book.
That's right. That's right. So what do we got on the itinerary today, Al?
Today we're just doing I believe, our season 6 book draft. It's hard to believe that this will be our 77th episode published. It's a lot of books.
That is hard to believe. A lot of books, a lot of knowledge.
A lot of guest appearances.
That's right. We've changed dramatically, right?
Yeah, we both well, I've moved now since we've started. I've moved. This will be my third time moving, technically. Bought 2 additional houses. Yeah, just living life. You're in a different country.
That's right. That's right. I got this past week was a real world experience of prisoners of geography when I was driving through Montenegro and Serbia.
Okay. How so?
It was so in those books that we covered, it talks a lot about how the geography, rivers, water access shapes kind of the culture, what a country would tend to specialize in or be lacking. And I can tell you that, if you don't have fast highways going through tunnels, it takes a long time to go up and over mountains. And I'll leave it at that. And I can see why some people are so isolated from the rest of the world. And it was definitely a memorable drive. But I don't want to go off too much on a tangent. So let's get to the draft.
All right.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I guess this one was a little different. We each picked one, I guess, quote unquote classic. I don't really know. We never really technically defined that. So I guess you want to maybe list what your criteria was.
I don't know if I had criteria per se, but if you go on Amazon and type in classic books, that was kind of where I started this sifting process. And I would say for my first pick, one of this author's other books is definitely known as a classic, Animal Farm by George Orwell. But this book that I have selected is a book that I haven't really heard much about until recently. And I might have just been, under a blanket, not because I think a lot of people know about this, but I just didn't. And this is the book 1984. And I think this seems to be very popular amongst the Bitcoiners and a lot of the freedom fighters out there.
So, I actually was gonna guess that you were gonna pick Animal Farm.
Okay.
So
Animal Farm was an excellent book.
Yeah.
And that definitely contributed into me selecting this book. Now, actually, I think it might have been kind of a location thing because there's a store I go to in Vienna that has kind of different English books amongst the German books, and they have a lot of the classics. And I actually read Animal Farm when I was in Vienna about 3 years ago. And this time when I went, I was just looking around, and sure enough, that same exact version of Animal Farm was there, and next to it was 1984. So that's kind of how I stumbled upon picking this.
Yeah, I
But
mean the
I
good
guess it's a Vienna thing.
I guess the fun thing about Animal Farm is that I did a book report on Animal Farm in ninth, 10th, and 11th grade. Uh, got
Wow,
A's.
recycling material, huh?
I know I got an A every single time too.
Wow.
Especially you would think the last time I had it down pat. Uh, well, I guess since you started, wait, 1984 is 328 pages?
That is what is, I mean, depending on the version you get, um, that I think that's what was listed in um Amazon with the appendix included. And the version I currently have, it's about 311 without the appendix.
Okay, that's not a big deal. All right,
So
well, I guess since you started with you started with your, I guess, quote unquote classic, I'll start with mine. My criteria was, I would say, if possible, even less precise than yours. I just took it as something, uh, honestly, when you Google like books like you have to read, it's one of the ones that comes up as like, I guess, a classic or something that you would often found being read in like an AP literature class. And I picked Slaughterhouse-Five by Kurt Vonnegut.
Slaughterhouse, is it like the number, like, or spelled
Yeah, the
out?
number five.
Okay. And do you know the page count on that one?
I don't have it off the here. I can get it for you real quick. I do not have it off the top of my head, but it's not long. I believe it's around 200 pages.
I'm gonna just put 200. Okay. And for those of you watching on the YouTube
Yeah,
feed,
190.
okay, we're kind of picking out of order just because of guests that have agreed to come on. So yeah, why don't you give your second pick, which will be released around September 3rd.
Okay, so my second pick is a book that I was as I often do at work, I was perusing the YouTube and I was listening to a talk on what is one of the issues plaguing universities, and it was by a woman named Heather McDonald, who works at, I believe, she's a professor at the Manhattan Institute, which is more or less just a research institution in New York. Her book was called The Diversity Delusion. Uh, she gave a very excellent talk, so I'm expecting this to be a interesting read.
What is the author's name again? Sorry.
Heather McDonald. It's
And
like
what's
Matt.
Slaughterhouse Five's author actually? I didn't write
Kurt
it down.
Vonnegut.
Bert. I'm gonna spell this wrong, but
VON.
they'll
VON.
I'm gonna just leave it there.
That's
Okay.
all I got.
Okay. Okay. So my next pick, which will be released July 23rd, and we're gonna have now the Katusa book, The Rise of America, and the book we did recently with cousin Dan Meiji, The End of the World is Just the Beginning by Peter Zeihan, touch on green energy. And we have an expert coming on, Andrew Feely, and we will have this book, The Rare Metals War, to discuss as a backdrop. Now we might get a little off topic, but this is kind of the book we're going off of. And this is by Guillaume Petron. And this book is about 288. Okay, Al, what is your last selection?
My last selection is I hear this book talked a lot about in like some, self-help circles of like how to more or less better yourself. And the book is called Atomic Habits. Sorry,
Ah, okay.
Atomic Habits by James Clear.
I've definitely seen this all around bookstores. Is
Yeah,
it Cleary?
I think it's Clear, Clear. But
Okay.
that's at least what I have written down.
Okay, cool. Okay. Now the last of my picks, it's going to be a repeat author. This will be the third book we've covered, including the Book of Numbers and Sanity is the Future of Wealth, I think was the other book that I did a solo mission on by Aaron Clary. And this one I picked, I think a lot of people are kind of going through the question of where do I live? Why should I live there? Why am I living where I live? And the place where you live determines so many factors. And when I stumbled upon this book, I thought this would be a good book to have him on, and he's agreed to come on. So that's pretty cool. And this book is called Reconnaissance Man. And from what I can gather, it is about, I think it's geared towards younger adults, maybe perhaps even right out of high school, like touring the US and trying to figure out where to live. What types of people live there? What types of habits do they have? What's the weather like? What best fits your personality? So I thought this was a good book to discuss. I think is it. This is 202, but I like his books. They're very short and sweet, to the point.
Easy to read as well.
Yeah. So yeah, that is it. So I don't know, Al, what are your views after looking at our new list?
Well, I think it's good. I think it'll be interesting. It'll be interesting with I guess the fiction books thrown in, the fiction classics. It'll be a different, it'll be a different breed, I guess, of something we
Mhm.
haven't really touched on yet. We haven't really had a discussion of a fiction book yet, so it'll be interesting to talk, see what that's like.
Okay. Yeah, I agree.
What are your
Um,
thoughts? What are your
well, I,
thoughts?
I actually have what is Slaughterhouse Five kind of about
It's
for
about the
people that have
war.
never heard?
It's really, from what I've read, it was on it was his interpretation of like the massive destruction done to Dresden after the war.
Okay. Dresden in Germany.
Dresden,
Okay. 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 Interesting. Yeah, it should be good. Yeah, Atomic Habits is always on those books to read list, so it should be good. Um, and yeah, looking forward to learning more about quote unquote clean energy and nuclear energy and all that good stuff.
Yeah. Well, I guess with that said, please reach out to us at brothersonbooks@gmail.com for any book recommendation, or if you would like to be a guest host for a particular book you have in mind. A great review or rating on whichever platform you're listening to would be greatly appreciated. And lastly, if you can think of any friend, family member, or coworker that might like this episode, please pass it along. Jack, as always, it's been a pleasure.
It's been a pleasure, Al. Listeners, don't forget to go get your matcha.
That's right. Get that matcha.
Okay, take care.